Good morning. Welcome to you all. I can see some familiar names, if not faces, in the chat. So if this is your third session with me in the last 8 days, first of all, well done. Good luck. I hope that those first two have been useful and meaningful, and that this one continues to be so. For those of you who have not been on one of these sessions with me before, my name is Matt Tipton. I have been teaching ICT and computer science now for, I always have to work this out, 16, 17 years. I started back when it was just in inverted commas ICT in the UK, and then went through that transition when it became computer science. We did that early. And I've taught just about every qualification available out there, but my focus obviously at the minute is on Pearson. These are the qualifications that I'm delivering. So what I would say, same as previously, is that it would be lovely in the chat if you could introduce yourself, say hi, say where you're from. There's a few people in there that obviously I know already. I've just seen, I think Zishan just popped in. So if you have anything you want to say as I go along, I think it's fair to say that I try and respond pretty quickly. I think it's important that we iron out any misunderstandings or provide any clarification as we go. But yeah, feel free to pop things in the chat. I will answer them as quickly as I can. I can see the chat filling up at the moment, so let's see who we've got. Yes, Ishan, hello again. How are you? Yihan, Carol from Wales, but living and teaching in Dubai. Okay, Carol, I'm from England, but I was up until recently living and teaching in Abu Dhabi. I hope it's all good over there. Bahrain, great. Okay, King's Entire, very interesting, Louise. Very nice to meet you. I'm going to be just for a second, Louise. My son does his learning through you, Louise. Very interesting. So from Jordan, Sri Lanka, Egypt, fantastic. Okay, so lots of places lots of people from all over the world. Two from King's Entire, fantastic. So let's get going. Oh, sorry, just as well, tell me, sorry, is this your first time with this qualification? Is this your first time with IT in general? I've said this at the start, but I know that with the current dearth, with the current lack of qualified computer science and ICT teachers globally, that a lot of the time the more IT competent colleagues in a school will get asked to deliver IT when it needs to be delivered. So yeah, I'll be really interested to find out if you are coming to us here as if you're coming to here as an experienced computer science and ICT teacher, a new computer science and ICT teacher, or an IT literate colleague in a school who has been asked to deliver content because it needs to be delivered. Okay. Okay. So let's get going. As I said, as I'm going through, there are things that make no sense, or you feel I've made them make no sense, stop me, ask me, and we can discuss. I think for the experienced ones amongst you, so I've seen Zishan, so Harindi, you were on before, I think, weren't you? So various, I've seen you before. Yeah, just stop me and ask me. They know the process. So I'm going to assume you can all see my screen. So let's get going. So first of all, here's the agenda today. We'll just do a little bit of a welcome, talk to you about Pearson, what Pearson is about and looks like. And then we will do a little bit of a qualification overview. We'll do a content overview with an activity that goes with it. We'll do a little bit of a look at planning for delivering the course and a couple of activities that go with that. Then some ways of preparing the students for the exams and an activity that goes with that. And then we'll have a little bit of a look at mark schemes and marking practice. And then I'll tell you what support is available through Pearson beyond this. If I pause, it's because I'm looking at messages. Okay, okay, fantastic. Okay, great. Okay, Susan, almost as long. Well, the same. In fact, same amount of time as me teaching. Okay, okay. So let's have a look. So the aims of today. There we go. So we are going to review the content, explore how to plan the course and some lessons, try and understand the assessment a bit more, understand the assessment objectives, look at some question types, look at the mark scheme, bit of practice. Support provided by Pearson around assessment and exemplars, and then other support available from Pearson with this qualification. I am going to work on the premise, I'm going to work on the assumption as of now that you've all been able to access the delegate materials. So in there, you should have a reasonably lengthy Word document, which has got the activities in the marking practice, and I think it's got the agenda and the aims and objectives on as well. And then there are a couple of blank marking grids for one of the longer questions we're going to have a look at marking. And I think the spec is in there as well for you all to be able to access. So I'm hoping that you've all got access to that. If you haven't, or if you're, I know I've had a couple of occasions, I think it was, maybe it was in Zishan actually, where you were struggling to access those materials. If that's proving to be a problem at the moment, just let us know in the chat and we'll try and fix it. But other than that, at this point, I'm going to assume you have access to those materials, and we're gonna plow on. Okay, excellent. So first of all, welcome to Pearson. Some of you will have, I'm sure, been dealing with Pearson for a awfully long time. Others will be maybe making the transition to Pearson because you want to change specifications, or it's a qualification that you've never delivered before. So just to let you know, the UK's largest awarding organisation for qualifications, very much aligned to the British educational system, been going for 150 years, and as is the locations that I'm looking at on that chat is testament to the fact that Pearson partners with schools, universities, etc., all the way around the world. Let me just admit something. Sorry. There you go. So if you've just arrived, don't worry, we've barely started. It's just, yeah, we've barely started. You've missed nothing that's going to help you with the qualification, I'd suggest. But yeah, so globally recognised. Again, the fact that I'm talking to people from all over the world recognises that. So let's have a little bit of a look at this qualification. Again, if you're new to it, but not new to A level and post 16 qualifications, level 3 qualifications, you may well kind of recognise the similar structure. So first and foremost, if you haven't already, please access the specification. I know that I may well be speaking to well, I know that I'm speaking to some experienced educators, and so you'll know that the first port of call for anything like this is the specification. It is nice and detailed. I think as you get further and further into your teaching career, you become much more adept at reading these specifications. They have a very particular way about them. If you're new to teaching or new to ICT, then it just takes a little bit of practice sometimes. But the specification is there, and will provide you with all the information you need. But specifically, the core of it, and it's certainly the first bit I tend to turn to, is the content you must cover. Okay, if I'm trying to gauge a first impression of a qualification, the first thing I do is I go and I have a look at the oh, excuse me, somebody's in trouble. Police car going by. The first thing I look at is the content. What's the content? Is it aligned with what I want my students to be able to do and the skills and the knowledge I feel they need? But yeah, so there's a copy of that both in your delegate pack and on the Pearson website. Again, just make sure it's the right one. There are occasions when an exam board, for good reason, will be running as they're phasing one qualification out, they're phasing another one in. That's not the case with this one at the moment. This has been around for a few years, and there's nothing IT-wise coming up to replace it. So yeah, there we go. Specification. A couple of things about the specification. It does undergo updates and reviews. Not many, okay, but it does. It is worthwhile. Certainly, I check as I get to the start of my planning cycle for the next year. I will always go onto the website and just check that that there's been no, or that I've got the latest issue of the specification. So we're currently on issue 2. But again, I've put a little screenshot there just to kind of show the kind. There'll be a summary of changes in the first few pages of any new issue of the specification, just detailing what has been changed. So, for example, yeah, I've got one here, and I'll maybe come back to this, or maybe I'll just talk about it now. You never know. Yeah, we live. Oh, so we teach. Well, we live in and we teach a very dynamic subject, a subject that changes all the time. I saw something about it on a computer science forum very recently about how to make sure these specifications are keeping up with the very rapid changes that happen in the world that are directly relatable to our subject. For those of you who accessed or tried to access the training last Monday on the 20th, was it the 20th, 21st, 20th, you'll know that happened right in the middle of the AWS, the Amazon Web Services outage, and so accessing Zoom became very difficult. We're blessed as a subject in that. There you go. There's a lesson's worth of discussion for part of this specification, part of just about any computer science or IT specification. So I would just make sure that you are keeping up to date with any issues, any issue changes on the specification. I mentioned this in the GCSE ICT one as well, in that, yes, we teach to the specification. Yes, the specification is there for you to guide your learning and to tell you what you need to learn, but we also need to be as relevant and up to date as possible. So, for example, this issue shows that connectivity expanded to list USB and HDMI. So, those of some of us will know that previously, if I wanted to if I was connecting a desktop to a monitor, often it was USB connections. Now a lot of it's HDMI. HDMI has obviously crept in, has become much more ubiquitous as with the advent of high definition television. So just making sure that again, look, contemporary digital devices. The item computer has been expanded to list desktop PCs, tablets, smart TVs, games consoles, things that maybe would not have been as prevalent when the specification was written, reviewed, and first issued. These things need to be updated. So, just the simple message here is we live in a very fast. We deliver a very fast changing qualification. Always try and be as relevant as possible, and the issue updates on the specification will try and match that relevancy. Okay. Okay. So I can see this making a QA. I'm just trying to open it, but it won't open. I'll come to that in a second. Okay. I hope that's okay. So let's go on to have a look at some of the materials that are available to you. So every qualification provides SAMs and then ADSAMs. So SAMs is sample assessment materials, and the add-on ADSAMs is additional. So when a specification is first released, obviously in lieu of, or with the absence of actual external qualifications that have been sat by the students, i.e. past papers, then the examiner will provide these sample assessment materials just so that you can have a look at the kind of questions that are going to be asked. I don't know if anybody here is also delivering or has looked to deliver the Pearson's, the Edexcel, sorry, not Pearson, the new BTEC, the AAQ, the Alternative Academic Qualification. The first thing I did when I was trying to evaluate whether it was the qualification I wanted to go with is I went and I had a look at the sample assessment materials just to have a look at the level of, or the types, levels, and of the questions that were going to be asked. and then I could link it to what was going on in the specification. So there are lots of sample assessment materials still on the website. There are some additional materials that go alongside the sample assessment materials that are very, very useful as well. But basically, they're both examples of the question paper and the mark scheme. They show the types of questions and how they're going to be marked. And all of the future papers in assessment are based on those sample assessment materials. So they're kind of the they're patient zero, as it were. They're the first. They're what everything else is based on. Yeah. Okay. However, in addition to this, and because now we're a few years into this qualification, we have also got some again a bit more exemplar material. So this is really useful actually. Just having a look at the exemplar material, going through it paper by paper again, so you can have a look at the kind of the level of detail that the examiners are looking for, so you know what level of detail to deliver in your lessons and your resources. Yeah, and again, just how the mark scheme is going to be applied when it comes to the exam time. I would also point out that, as I said, SAM's often the only assessment exemplar resource when a specification is released or when it's brand new. But this is now a reasonably well embedded qualification. As you can see, first examinations were in 2019. Well, would they be okay? Yeah, no, 2019 they'd have been okay, wouldn't it? Those days, yes. But there are now plenty of past papers on there for you to have a look at. I'm sure you've all been there. That first couple of years of delivering a qualification where the only assessment materials you have got are the sample assessment materials can be. It just makes it a little bit more challenging. But there you go. You now have a dearth of past papers to fall back on. I hope that's clear. I would check the chat, but for some reason my chat won't open at the top, so I'm going to assume there's nothing there. Before we move on to, I hope that's okay with. I'm assuming that for most of you that's pretty much standard. Okay, so this international A level is sort of split in two, but it is split in two. Let's face it. So we have the AS level, okay, which is the two externally examined units, units 1 and 2, and then the A level, which is all 4. Okay, so units 1 to 4. So there is an option there for students to just sit units 1 and 2. Just I think it's advanced supplemental. So they just achieve the advanced supplemental qualification and cash it in and move on. It's interesting, I'm sure you've all been in that situation where you're having the conversation with students about whether they want to just do the AS or move on and do the A level, and it's often based on, well, a couple of things. One is their motivation levels, but 2, it may well be that actually the AS level provides enough UCAS points to get them where they want to be, or enough to get them where they want to be. So yeah, I mean, it's a perfectly valid tactic. You see students who do it all the time. Yeah, just to break it down. So all units are externally assessed. Summer exams, and it's made up of those. So 2 hours for unit 1, 3 hours for unit 2, 2 hours for unit 3, 3 hours for unit 4, and kind of roughly speaking, units 1 and 3 are kind of the theory, and units 2 and 4 are the often more practical applications, but with a bit of theory in there as well. Okay, let me just check the Q&A, sorry. Sorry, Susan, understanding assessment, yes, Susan, it is going to be rescheduled. We just didn't have many people sign up for it. I think the new dates will probably be released in the next couple of weeks, but sorry to jump away. Sorry, everybody. Yes, the understanding assessment and improving delivery in A-level IT is going to be rescheduled for later on this year. Later on this year, maybe. Yeah, I think later on this year, as in so later on this calendar year, not academic year. So in the next couple of months, I would hope. Okay, so let's have a little bit of a look. So here we go, assessment structure. So here we go. Unit again. This is straight out specification, but there you go. So unit 1, 2 hours, 80 marks, half the AS level, all of 25% of the A level, and it's there you go, nice and clear. Those 6 topics, predominantly the theory topics from the first half of the course. And again, they need to demonstrate knowledge, understand concepts, apply knowledge and understanding, analyze and evaluate information. We'll come on to those assessment objectives in a little while, and then design solutions. Again, types of questions: multiple choice, short open response, extended, etc., etc. There you go. Must answer all questions. For Unit 2, which is the second part of the AS level, much more about the practical side of things in lots of ways. So functionality of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, so web stuff, and designing web pages and the semantic web. Again, similar things that they need to be able to do. Again, assessment overview is, again, a range of types of questions. Again, some will be based on data files that the students are provided. Whether that's a HTML file or a CSS file. And for some of them, some of those questions, they'll write the answer on the paper or type it, depending on their preference, obviously. No, not on their preference, sorry, on their if they have access arrangements or how they're doing the exam. And some of them, they will submit the HTML file, and we'll see what that looks like a little bit later on down the line in this presentation. The main thing to note about that is candidates needing access to a computer during the examination. That's something that I would begin to think about now, actually. It's for some of you, you may already have a very established process within your school of getting those arrangements set up. Making sure that you've got the right number of computers, the spaces between the computers, that the computers have the right setup on them, because there are some very clear guidelines provided as to what that situation needs to, what those computers can and can't do. Sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at the moment. I thought I'd got to open the page where I could talk to you about the setting up the exam, but I'm doing it as we. There we go. Yeah, I know it's inverted commas only October, but if you haven't already started the process of making sure that you are technically ready for that second paper, then I'd be getting on that immediately, especially as the recommendation is that there we go. The recommendation is that you have a go. Your mock exam is as close to the real thing as possible. So I'm just bringing it up. Instructions for there is the document, instructions for the conduct of the examination, and there will be some information there about when things need to be handed in, the date of the exam. So, for example, I'll have to check what this was last year's. I can't find. It's usually middle of May, but what is and isn't allowed, okay, and how to make sure that. So, I'm looking, for example, a desktop or a laptop must be made available to each candidate on a one-to-one basis. Candidates center must create a separate secure user area for each candidate. Cannot be accessible to candidates at any time other than during the exam. You need to make sure that for each candidate in there, they have access to a folder called, and then it's got a very specific naming convention, what has to go in it, that they need access to something like a code editor, depending on what they're doing yet. They must not use WYSIWYG website design, so Dreamweaver. That's not the point of the qualification. Must not have access to the internet or communication. So if you haven't already, I would be making sure that you are checking with your IT team, whoever it is at your school, to make sure that you're meeting or you can meet those requirements for both your mock exams and your real thing in June. Any questions about that before we move on? Oh, I can see another one in the Q&A, sorry. That's so just a quick question. I'm looking in the Q&A, sorry, Susan. So what software is likely to be available at the exam centers for HTML, JavaScript, and CSS? Almost certainly it'll just be for HTML and probably for CSS, it may well just be a notepad editor. So they may just have something as simple as that. Okay. So if you got the one physical school in Wales or where students can do the exam, so that it'd be you need to speak to that school and make sure that they can facilitate that. I would assume they can. If a school is an exam centre and they've ever dealt with more than one student with access arrangements, they'll have had some experience of making sure that that they can process it properly. But in regards to software likely to be available, for HTML, there's lots of options. I would I think we've just used Microsoft Notepad in the past because it's HTML code. You just save it as the right thing and then you run it. I hope that makes sense. I can see another one up here. Sorry. There we go. Chat. Let's look in the chat. Sorry. Dreamweaver is not allowed on this one, Zishan, because it's too assistive. What it's looking for the students to have direct show directly that they can manipulate some HTML. And so Dreamweaver's not. It's too. It can be too drag and. I haven't used Dreamweaver for years, but I think it's a bit too drag and drop, isn't it? Like there are pre-built elements that you can I think you can. It's been a long time, so you can do like insert table, text editor for the coding. Yeah, I mean, look, the HTML files that are shared as part of the stuff later on, I was just looking at them on text editor over the weekend, just kind of looking and making sure that it worked on that. So yes, I'm a little bit reluctant to get into the technical specifics because it's a conversation to have with your IT team about what they think is best. And IT teams can be they're certainly they can be very protective and defensive of their networks for good reason. They're protecting us from cyber attacks. But I mean, for example, I've just started at my new school. I started this year. I wanted to use Thonny as our IDE for computer science, and it took some persuading. Mainly because they like to read the privacy policy of an IDE, and Thonny don't provide a privacy policy because there's literally no data sharing of any kind. Thonny is the choice of IDE when you are very, very privacy conscious and you want to share absolutely nothing. So that I had to have a little bit of a conversation and explain why Thonny was better than anything else from a privacy point of view. VS Code, yes. I think I've seen that fused. Yeah. So if you're just going to use VS Code as an IDE, I'm pretty sure. In fact, I think VS Code may actually be the one that's specifically mentioned in the guidance. Hold on one sec. For the examination, 7.5, candidates will require access to a code editor, e.g., Microsoft Notepad, an IDE such as Visual Studio Code, VS Code, and then some kind of directory explorer software such as Microsoft Windows Explorer and a web browser. There you go. So they need to be able to edit the HTML, store files so that they can link to those files in their HTML, and then run the HTML as a website. Blacklist, whitelist of applications, these are not definitive. There's guidance as to what those applications can and can't do, provided on the guidance. If you're in doubt, if you get your exams officer to email the Pearson support, and they'll be able to help you with that. Okay. Okay, so okay, so sorry, I'm just reading. There's a couple of other messages coming through. Sorry, if it's me pausing, it's because I'm reading a message that's coming through either from technical support or somebody else. Well, Notepad plus plus is just a text editor, I'm assuming. Nazir. So my question is, would it allow them to write HTML code, save it as a .html file, and then run it as and then double click and open it on a browser? If the answer is yes, I'm going to assume yes. That's my assumption. Okay. There's a couple of people who actually contacted me directly to ask very specific questions. I will answer them, but I'll perhaps answer them when we move on to, and I get some people to do some of the exercises. So when I'm not talking, I'll address a couple of the questions people have asked on there as well. Okay, so let's move on. I do love it when a random slide provokes an awful lot of conversation. It's great. Again, I'm looking at, so Notepad, yes. Susan, I have to check that about JavaScript. I'd have to check the JavaScript question, your JavaScript query. But I know that your King's Inter High colleague has asked another question or made another point along similar lines, and that she may well reach out to the technical team at Pearson to get some of those questions answered, which is obviously your choice. But I'll double check anyway. Okay, so that's paper 2. Paper 3, I'm going to assume we're going to have slightly fewer questions about, because this is again another it's kind of your, I don't want to say traditional, this is traditional, isn't it? It's your traditional written paper. So again, externally assessed, and that's the theory topics from Unit 3. Again, with that topic 16 being the one that's trying to address the changes in our world and our world and our subject. Again, all types of questions, 4 assessment objectives, all questions must be answered. And then the last one, and I think I can see where the questions are going to start to come here. So externally assessed practical examination, all about databases. Okay, so the database stuff. So again, practical and theoretical questions, short, open response, extended open response. Again, some data files can be provided. Yeah, I think if memory serves right for this one, no, it isn't. In fact, is there's the evidence document that goes with this exam. So this is a little bit more about screenshotting and showing what they've done, or showing the results of a query, or showing the results of something like that. I'm just looking here. Yeah. Again, just I'm going to emphasize again, if you have a look at the conduct of the exam guidance, I mean, it even gives you exactly how much space there must be between candidates measured from the nearest outer edge of one workspace to the next. But there you go. There's so the database one is Unit 4. Any questions about that one before we move on? There's something else I was going to mention. What was it? Can't remember. Okay, I'm sure it'll come back to me. Okay, so let's have a look at the next bit. It's again, I'll be interested to hear what people think about assessment objectives, and how they use them in their delivery. Certainly, I try and be as deliberate with this language as I can, just so that when I'm when I'm talking to my students about a topic or about or I sort of give them or I talk them through the type of question that might get asked in the exam, I can say to them, okay, I think this is going to be this kind of content. This is what an AO1 style question would look like for this content, and what an AO2. So talking to them about the fact that AO1 is just I don't want to say just, but AO1 is demonstrating knowledge. So can they provide definitions? That's your 1 and 2 markers, I would say, roughly. But can they talk about stuff showing that they know what it means and a nice, I don't want to say simple or low, but that's usually a couple of words worth, a couple of lines worth of answers. Can they apply the knowledge and understanding? Okay, so can they take what they know, and it's usually going to ask them to apply it to. They may again you'll have all seen the types of questions, but it may well be about a scenario. So if they are being asked, for example, about project management, if one of the questions is project management, and it may ask them to provide a definition for agile agile development, for the agile development model, and then it may that may be just AO1. What's meant by agile, the agile approach. AO2 may be given this scenario, explain why the agile approach is great. It may well be discuss the advantages and disadvantages of agile in this circumstances, and then AO4 is usually around the 2 practical papers, just by definition. But there you go. So I think that's an often overlooked part of how we can prepare students for the exams. Those assessment objectives can, I think they if you once you get them embedded in your language and in your practice, they can provide pretty handy shortcuts to helping students to understand what's expected of them in certain circumstances. So the that one is how they're spread out percentages wise in those individual ones, and that just kind of shows you for the AS level. So I've got my little Zoom box keeps going across the bit I want to read. So that shows you the breakdown for the AS level. For obvious reasons, the majority of the AO1 comes in Unit 1. Unit 2, obviously, is that practical one where it's a little bit more application of stuff. So yeah, the AO2 and the AO4 tend to be the more practical exams. And then for the A level, the overall, again, there we go. So no AO1 for Unit 4. Just it's not assessed in that way at all. It's much more about the application and designing solutions, that kind of thing. Okay, does anybody have any questions about the assessment objectives before we move on to what's next? I'm going to assume no. Okay. So, content overview. I'm not going to linger on this too much. I want because obviously it's in the specification, but here you go. So just be aware of the unit structure. The unit is made up of the number of topics, and then some of them have subtopics, and then some of those subtopics have letters. It's personally one. I mean, I've obviously, as a head of department over the years, I've been able to choose the exam boards. I'll be honest, the reason I tend to come back to Edexcel is, well, one of the reasons I come back to Edexcel is I think that the amount of content to be covered is always is a nice robust amount of content, but it's always reasonable. And I often think that the way the content is laid out in the specification about what's required is good as well. I just find, and maybe it's just a personal thing, but I always find the content overview and the units pretty easy to work out when it comes to Edexcel. Okay. So just to break down, here you go. So we've got topic 1, topic 2, topic 3, again with the different parts of it. I would say that just because these topics have only got like 2 sections in them doesn't mean they're tiny. It just means that that's the way it's been laid out. I wouldn't sort of read into it too much, but yeah. So topic 1, hardware and software, split into hardware and software, nice and obvious. And then networks and online environment. And then for the other 3 topics for unit 1, excuse me. So we have databases and database design, and we have just skipped across. So wider issues, and so IT systems is that topic 4. So I don't know why I missed that topic 4. Yeah. So let me just see what's in the chat. Video example. So we're going to jump back a little bit. Video examples of working through practical exams. Zishan, the answer to that one is I don't know. It's not something I've ever looked for on the website and therefore accessed. I'm just looking, teaching and learning materials, past training content. There you go. Louis says there are very few. So there are recordings of the online events. I mean, I can't stop you, Louise. I think the more information, I'm just having a look to see if there's more. I don't think there are video resources out there. Certainly not on the Edexcel one. Zishan, when you say working through practical exams, you mean the students working through the practical exam, or do you mean how to set up for the practical exam? I'm assuming you mean a video showing the students how to get going on the practical exams, i.e. what to do when you sit down. Yeah, I don't think so. But perhaps, yeah, okay. So my gut instinct, Zishan, is I don't think so. I don't know whether that's a deliberate omission or whether it's just something that we haven't or that hasn't been, that we, you know, that it was decided that maybe wasn't needed. But I see what you mean. So I mean, there you go. There are lots on there. Louise and Susan all over it. Maybe that's why there's nothing on the website, because other people have already done it. It is. I think I mentioned this before. I think one of the great joys of teaching ICT and computer science is that I think and it may be the same for the subjects as well. You know, who am I to say? But I feel that as a community, and I think very much is a community, computer science and ICT teachers are often really keen to share what they know. And the beauty of them then being ICT and computer science teachers, and they often do it in a very technologically competent way. You know, it's we've all had occasions where we've made, you know, I a long time ago I was teaching business studies alongside ICT and computer science, and I think there was a notable difference. Maybe I was being biased, I don't know, but I thought always there was a notable difference in the quality of the, and this was 15 years ago, but there was always there was a difference in the quality of the digital artifacts being provided by business studies teachers versus those being provided by ICT teachers. But then I suppose there should be. Yeah, it's. I mean, Zishan, I'm not going to sit. I'm not going to sit and comment on the proficiency or clarity of other exam boards, but certainly, again, I've already mentioned a couple of reasons why I use Edexcel where I am, but I think the clarity of what's expected from Edexcel tends to be pretty much on the money, more but better than yeah, more clearer than anybody else I've ever dealt with. Yeah, there are some. Yeah, there are some. There are some exam boards out there who I've looked at the materials and thought to myself, I have absolutely no idea what you want from me here. For anybody who's taught internationally and has taught computer science internationally, may well have experiences where the clarity of feedback coming back from an exam board has been mind-blowingly vague. I'm not naming any exam boards, but if you've taught computer science internationally, you may well know what I'm talking about. Okay, so before we go off on some kind of assassination of another exam board, which we're not here to do, let's carry on with what's in these units. So there you go. Topic 7 is very much about functionality of HTML, understanding the functionality of CSS, understanding the functions of JavaScript. Oh, what's going to annoy me? I think, is it right at the bottom? Are they different sized letters? Maybe they're not. Maybe it's just my eyes. And there you go. The rest of topic 3. Sorry, topic 2, excuse me. So can they design stuff? And then for topic 3, so manipulating data, enabling technologies. So as we go from the AS level to the A level, yeah, maybe just a little bit more complex topic wise. But there you go. So that's the content of topic 3, and then for topic 4, your database stuff. Okay, so applications and user needs and structuring data and all the good stuff. Okay, so I hope and assume that you have that Word document in front of you that has some content. On there, there is activity 1. Activity 1 looks like this. Okay, so with your specification open and in front of you, there are questions written by teachers for use in the classroom. So for each question, I'd like you to identify the unit and the specification bullet point you think it belongs to. And then if you can, if you're feeling like you're up to the task, there are some notes. You can add notes in the final column to answer the question. The first one has been done for you to get you going. Any will come to command words later on, but any key command words have been highlighted in red. So when I had it, I think that's about a 10-minute exercise. And that will do 2 things. It will give me a chance to have a quick drink of my coffee without you all staring at me, which is always nice. It also means that you get a break from me talking, so it's a double win. So if you could have a go at that one. The time is now 9, so it's 1 minute past, so 51 minutes past the hour. So here, for example, here it's 9:51. So 9 minutes. Let's see how we go after 9 minutes. I think that's fair enough. Is anybody not able to find that in the delegate pack? Oh. Okay. 9 minutes, folks. Have a go. See. And in the meantime, I can try and catch up with a couple of these chats that have popped up. I've got a couple of questions. I just want to make sure. So I'm just checking that because it should do that the delegate pack has got in it what I think it should have in it. Where is it? So in the delegate pack, there is a Word document that's called 28/10/25, today's date, obviously, Getting Ready to Teach International A-Level ICT Delegate Pack. And if you scroll to the table of contents and click on Activity 1, it is on page, probably count the pages, it's on page 5. So there is a Word document in the delegate pack, and Activity 1 is on page 5 of the delegate pack. Would I be right in saying that just the very act of having to maybe do a linear search, excuse the computer science reference, doing a linear search for the specification means that maybe this is going to take a little bit longer than the 9 minutes I gave you? Would anybody like any, without sounding too much like a teacher, would anybody like an extension on the task? Is if we start looking at these in the next 90 seconds, is that a bit too soon for people? Okay, so um, first of all, apologies. I thought I'd included a slide after this, which have got the answers on it, but I can quickly talk you through them, which is not ideal, but there we go. For that first one, the unique learner ID, um, it's it's unit 3, it says there, bullet 12.1.5, and the format check using the input mask just basically says, look, okay, they've got a 2 LL for the two uppercase letters, and then single digits, and then they followed by lowercase l. So they'd get the marks there for basically showing that they'd built some kind of input mask. The next one, relational database, is so it's 5.24, 5.22, and 5.23. I'm trying to keep up with the chat as we go. Yeah, okay, fine, great. And again, that would be a. I'm just looking at the interrelationship diagram. So you'd have a club enrollment table that will be linking the student table and the club table, with a one-to-many from the student to the club enrollment and a one-to-many from the club to the club enrollment, and then a teacher, also a teacher table, teacher entity, linking to the club. I suspect, and nobody's judging you for it, least of all me, is that maybe you found it's not, you'd rather just look at the specification points. That's absolutely fine. Rather than sitting and doing an ICT test at 10 o'clock in the morning. Well, let me ask the students to do it. So who are we to complain? Um, I'm just going to quickly go to the chat again. Sorry. Next one, 3, difference between symmetric and asymmetric encryption is 13.5.1 and 13.5.2. And I'm assuming that you've all answered about symmetric being single key encryption and decryption, with asymmetric encryption focusing on public and private key pairs. Yeah, there we go. Question 4. Difference between the purpose of application software and system software is 1.2.1. And it's something along the lines of, so application software is designed to perform an end user task, whereas system software provides an interface between the user and the computer. I always talk about application software being the stuff we use and system software being the stuff the computer uses. I know that's a little bit clumsy, but I think it sometimes helps them to get their head around it. So HTML code, Unit 2, 7.1.1, 7.2.4, and the OL tags and the LI tags. So the OL tags are the opening and closing of an ordered list, and the LI are used to signify list items. So we've got an ordered list of colors, and then the two list items are pastel pink and bright pink. Yeah, so each item would be numbered on that one. We've got Jasbinder is an IT network manager, keep track of laptop loans. So this is, okay, so an SQL statement to create a table. So it's 5.3.2. And again, it's as long as you've got create table, and then you've got the name of the table, which is laptop loan, or it's the obvious answer for it. And then you've got the 1, 2, 3, 4. You got your 5, 1, 2, 3, 6. Sorry, 6 data items. Then they're including a primary key, which is a laptop ID. There you go. And I think that's it for those ones. Okay, so there we go. A nice stroll through the specification. I don't think there's anything in the public chat. No, there's not. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, anybody got any questions? Oh, yeah, activity 1 answers. There we go, done them already. Okay, so planning for delivering the course. I've talked on a couple of these previous meetings about just being deliberate with your planning. But there you go. So the IAS is 180 guided learning hours, so 6 hours per week for 1 academic year. And then the A level is obviously double, again, based on 6 hours per week for 2 academic years. So notionally 3 hours per week per unit. I know that will, I mean, goodness me, we could almost have an entire meeting about the idiosyncrasies of how these things are delivered school to school. I think most, well, I may be wrong, and feel free to correct me. A lot of schools now seem that if they've got more than one ICT or computer science teacher, the A level tends to get split nowadays. I can't remember the last, well, I can remember the last time that I was the solely responsible for a post-16 qualification, but that's because there was nobody else qualified in the department. But yeah, 3 hours per week per unit. Again, don't know about you. The little speech I always give at the start of my A-level courses is that for every hour they're doing in a lesson, I would expect them to do an hour outside of a lesson. I think that's just the trade-off, as it were, for that jump from GCSE to A-level. And again, I'll be interested to hear people's thoughts on this. I think for whatever reason, that jump from GCSE to A-level is probably the biggest jump they have to do in education, from a personal responsibility and motivation point of view. They've suddenly got all this spare time, and just from a complexity of content level. Everyone here, I think it's safe to assume everybody here went to university. I certainly found my first year of university a repetition of my A levels. That's not that big a jump, and perhaps that's dangerous as well. But that jump from GCSE to A level is significant, and and helping them with that is always a big thing. So they got high level planning. There is, again, one of the reasons I really enjoy delivering the Edexcel qualifications is I think the wealth of resources that are available to help deliver the qualification when you first start with it is tremendous. to make available schemes of work for all the units. I think other examples have maybe started to catch up with this a little bit, but certainly, goodness me, when was it? Was it almost 10 years ago when I was 15? Yeah, 10 years ago. When I was looking to choose a GCSE or an IGCSE for the school I was at in Oman, the stuff that went alongside the specification from Edexcel was a real a clincher for me. So yeah, tons of resources on there. Again, if you're new to the specification or new to the subject, or just wanted that little bit of an extra help, there's lots of things there to access. Obviously, you're going to have to edit it for your school's situation, for your situation, hence the fact they're editable documents, excuse me. But I would highly recommend it, accessing that stuff. Okay. What I haven't put, again, I don't know why I've missed it out. Again, we can have a long conversation like this. I would, at the start of the course, and with the help of things like the schemes of work, I would very much sit and work out how you're going to cover the content of units 1 and 2 in year 12, or however you want to call it, and then units 3 and 4 in year 13. I like Gantt charts, and maybe I should have that on a t-shirt. But I think I've sat in the staff room with colleagues in February and March, and they're having a meltdown because they haven't planned out their year in advance, and they suddenly realise that they've got half a term to go and half the content still to cover, which is awful. But obviously, that's something we want to avoid. So these are also great for sitting down and saying, okay, well, how long's recommended? How long have I got? What can I and making sure that not only do you set your timeline out for the year, but that you have a way of making sure you're following that timeline as well. Again, I apologize. I don't know why I've not included it on there. I had my screenshot of my Gantt chart on the previous session, where basically you can literally see on a week by week basis, I've planned out what I'm going to do. And then you can see we've started to black out the squares as we've completed the work. So yeah, but those schemes of work would help you to build that kind of resource. Activity number 2. Goodness me, we're flying through this, are we? What time is it? Wow. Okay, so activity number 2, which is also on your Word document, is this. So there you go. So on this, oh, where's it gone? Somebody just waiting to come on. There you go. So this is a lesson. Okay. So this is a lesson that you are that is being planned. So I think it might. I'm just going to need to let people. There's people in the waiting room. I'm just going to let them in. Welcome if you've just joined. And anything you've missed, obviously, can be caught up via the a recording. I'm hoping you've got the delegate resources. If not, we can try and work out how to get them to you as when we start this activity. So this is a lesson that needs so look, some ideas of how this lesson could be organized. So it's the effectiveness of a user interface and justify features in relation to a given problem. So learners have spent some time practicing building user interfaces within a relational database. They've learned about user experience through research and teacher-led lessons. They've not been introduced to the command word assess, which is one of the command words associated with evaluating the unit. So the taxonomy of the code word assess is either need to give careful consideration to all the factors or events that apply and identify which are the most important or relevant, and make judgments about significant importance. Learners do not need to make recommendations. So the just maybe 2 or 3 ideas of how you could organize a lesson or a couple of the activities that you could have that would develop in them the ability to answer questions that start with the word assess. Again, if you want it specifically in relation to building user interfaces within a relational database. So again, it's activity 2 on the Word document. There is space to write. There is a little bit, but essentially 2 or 3 ideas of what you might do to get them to understand how they would answer a question or some kind of project basing that includes the word assess. Yeah, more teaching strategies than anything else. I make it 10:14, so 14 minutes past the hour. I think that's a reasonably quick one. So we'll get back together at 20 minutes past the hour. So 6 minutes. 6 minutes. So maybe 3 or 4 bullet points as to how you would how you would do that. But the lesson objective is there. Learners will be able to assess the appropriateness and effectiveness of a data entry form. So you need activities that will allow them to understand what was meant by assess, and then specifically in the appropriateness and effectiveness of a data entry form. Does anybody have any questions about that before I stop talking and drink some more coffee? Let me just check the chat. Sorry. If you're okay, off you go. Crack on. Marble, I'm assuming you're saying no, as in you have no questions, rather than you're not refusing to do the work. I'm assuming that's the case because Marble, you've been fantastic up till now. There you go. I knew that would be the case, Marble. Okay, so I make that 20 minutes past the hour. So let's anybody got any suggestions as to how they would help learners to be able to assess the appropriateness and effectiveness of a data entry form? Any suggestions as to what you might do in that lesson? Anybody want to be the first to volunteer something? Or did everybody use this as a coffee break? Oh, there we go. Right. Yeah. Um, yeah. So I think it's one we don't use enough. So getting them to assess. Yeah, I think that would probably be my starter as well, Louise. Um, what does assess mean? And once we've established what assess means, then we can start to assess. But yeah, anything small groups, peer assessment. Um, yeah, I think I'd be spending some time explaining what assess means, um, and then maybe an exemplar, or talk them through a completed assessment, and then get them, as you said, to carry out peer assessments. Yeah, perfect. Anything like that. Agree completely. Okay. Did anybody else have any other suggestions they wanted to throw in there? Okay. So some suggestions are there you go. So explain the keyword assess, assessment, factors that are important in terms of, so again, linking it back to the fact that this is about data entry forms on a database. Uh, Factors are important in terms of data entry forms. Learners could work in pair in small groups to research the factors. Um, Provide a data entry form for them to assess. Assesses one of their own data entry forms or each other's data entry forms. All good stuff. Right. Oh, there's another. Yeah. Yeah, that would also be a good thing to do. I agree. Yeah. Um, I know that again, we could have a whole 3 hour session on flipped learning, and what that means, and how it's perhaps it didn't fall out of favor, but I think all conversations about whether things were too flipped or not, it became very confusing. Um, but certainly that independent knowledge development of certainly the AO1 stuff, I think is really important. Yeah, agree, Susan. Yeah, what does it mean to assess something? What are the standards and the criteria by which we assess? How do we identify those points? And then how do we work out whether we've measured up against them? Perfect. Okay. Um, so let's keep going. So activity 2, straight on to activity 3. So here we go. Um, this is just a little bit of practice. I did wonder about moving this somewhere else, but we'll see. In fact, let me quickly check whether I want to do this in a slightly different order today. Let's come back to it. We're going to come back to activity 3. I'm going to do things in a slightly different order, for good reason. So let's talk about planning or preparing students for exams. So timing, symbols, command words. So all of the exams are a maximum of 80 marks. Units 1 and 3 are 2 hours long. Units 2 and 4 are 3 hours long. I'd be really interested to find out the timings that people talk to their students about. I've always worked on the basis of a mark a minute. Is what they're trying to aim for, and then how to double back check or sort of expand on certain certain questions. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that? On the roughly a mark a minute I've always worked on. Yeah. So I think at yeah, I'd agree. Okay, fair enough. Um, it's interesting. You're right. I'm always a little bit worried about those students who are. We've all got those students who write way too much. Um, but yeah, 1.5, fine. You've always got that one student who wants to write down everything they know. So without trying to panic them, maybe a little bit of time sensitiveness. But yeah, fine. So would we agree that a 20-mark question? I'd be saying 20 to 30 minutes, but 30 minutes is probably the better recommendation. Yeah. So yeah, as in there, 1 to 3. 20-mark question in Unit 2. Anybody got any thoughts about that one? We're going to have a look at a 20-mark question in Unit 2. So a 20-mark question in Unit 2 will often be there'll be some HTML, some CSS, some work on a website. Personally, I'll be asking them to probably spend 40 minutes on a 20-mark question in Unit 2. Does anybody have any thoughts on that one? I think given the practical nature of it, and maybe they're having to move between things and test them, I think I'd be recommending 40 minutes on a Unit 2 on a 20-mark question in the practical papers. I'm going to assume that nobody's disagreeing with that. For some reason, my toolbar at the top went open at the minute, but there you go. Okay. This is all in specification, but for the flowcharts, there are the standard flowchart symbols. They're not doing themselves any favors if they don't use them. And again, obviously, it's our responsibility to teach them those and to make sure they're using them as often as possible. But those are in the specification. So obviously, flowchart symbols, data flow symbols, again, getting them to use those properly. And then any information flow symbols, and obviously very specifically with the entity relationship diagrams and the crow's foot relationship lines between them. And then as previously mentioned, well, as mentioned in activity 2, there's a whole range of command words. I think there were fewer command words for this A level than there are for the GCSE. Maybe I've imagined that. But again, they are all in the specification. It's well worth the students being coached in that and knowing how to answer a question based on the command word. But again, I'm sure most of you know this. And the rest of the command words are there. Okay, so we're now going to, if you'll click and change. Okay, so as I said, there's the standard command words, and then there's the extended writing command words as well. So analyze and recommend for units 2 and 4, assess for units 2 and 4, evaluate for 1 and 3. So with that in mind, my computer's not frozen. Okay, maybe that's what it was. Yeah, so look, again, I think that's the point I was trying. Yeah, Louise, Louise has made a point about timings per word, timings per mark. I told this maybe in the last one of these I did, but I had years ago. He was a business studies student, and he would write and write and write. He'd write essay-style questions for the first half of the paper and run out of time. So I had him almost stopwatch timings of right. It's a 3-mark question. You're done. Move on. 3 minutes. Move on. Otherwise, he would just get so hung up on trying to explain every single thing he knew about a topic, relevant to the question or not, before moving on. We obviously then did some work on command word taxonomy with him as well. So activity 4 is this one here. Again, it is on. So we're going to skip activity 3, just because we'll see how we go times wise. We might be okay today. So these are responses to questions given by students based on the and they're good responses. Okay, based on the response that you can see in front of you, your task is to identify which command word was used in the question that prompted them to give that response. Yes. Okay. I hope that makes sense. So obviously read the first one, and you need to decide whether the question that prompted that response was an explain or a describe question. You have that in front of you, obviously, on the Word document. So I will put up, where's it gone? I will alternate between, well, there you go, explain. Oh, it should be going back a little screen if I press it again. Okay. So describe is give an account of something. Statements in the response need to be developed as they are often linked, but they do not need to include justification or reason. That's describe. Explain, an explanation requires a justification, exemplification of a point. Must contain some element of reasoning, justification, linked to a point, idea that has been identified. So based on that, and the difference between which one needs a justification and which one doesn't, could you please have a go at activity 4? It's 2 minutes past the hour. Sorry, 32 minutes past the hour. We'll let that one run until 40 minutes past the hour. I suspect some of you will finish before that, but again, I think we're doing okay for time, so I'm not going to hurry up. I'm not going to get us in too much of a rush. And again, obviously, if you've got any problems accessing anything, just let me know. Okay, I suspect that's probably plenty of time for that one. Um, so, um, okay, so we'll go top to bottom. In fact, we'll do it this way. There are I think there are three of each. Three that use describe and three that use explain. Um, so obviously we'll be able to work out what the other ones are by default. Anybody want to suggest which three used the word describe? So which three of those questions were prompted? Which three of those responses were prompted by a question with the command word describe? So first offering is 1, 4, and 6. Any advance on 1, 4, and 6? So we've got a second person agreeing with 1, 4, and 6. Anybody want to disagree? Miguel agrees with. Anybody want to disagree with 1, 4, and 6? Agreed. Agreed. Anybody want? Do we have a dissenting voice out there? I hope not, because one. Okay, so okay, 1, 4, and 6 is correct. So, question one, they were asked to describe a series of steps. Question four, they were asked to describe multi-user licenses. And question six, they were asked to describe how an RFID reader could identify a read an identity card. And questions, yeah, two, three, and five were the explain questions. Okay, great. Okay, so we're cleaning up what we're doing. Yeah, because we've all got. Okay, fine. Okay, so let's move on. There we go. Describe, explain, describe. Fine, great. Um, okay. It's what's interesting. I think to a certain extent, we've maybe already addressed this with the question that was asked about walkthroughs. But one of the suggestions for the mocks is that is something you do. Um, so a meaningful mocks walk and talk throughs for units 1 and 3. Um, well, for all of them really. But just as a guideline for getting them ready for the exams. Try and do your exams in the same room. So try and do the mocks in the same exam room as well. They'll do the exams, ideally in the same seats, although I know that can be a little bit difficult if you haven't got the information from your exams officer. If you can, give them an exam paper as close to being like the real thing as possible. As I said before, we have now 6 years worth of past papers. So a full past paper is always a possibility. And then in these walkthroughs, it's worth literally going, sitting them all together and going through every single question on the paper. This is again, this is a preference thing for you as a teacher. You may feel that actually the preparation work you've done around exam technique and around command words and around timings and about everything else means that this is excessive. But certainly, I think for students, when they've made that jump from GCSE to A level, which I mentioned before, this is actually it is actually really useful. Sort of almost ironing out their slightly errant ways before they get to form them. So, can you walk them through every question, talk them through the question, identify the keyword, what's the structure of the answer going to be, what information do you have to recall, and then they write their responses in the time conditions meeting that, 1.5 marks per minute for 1 and 3, and just over 2 for the other two papers. Okay. Really, really important to make sure that they're not spending time in the exam hunting for the files and the resources they need for those projects. Yeah, just making sure that So So sorry, somebody's just trying to grab my attention. So again, getting them used to seeing what some of these common mistakes look like, so that if they do for some reason encounter it in the exam, they know it's a mistake and they can flag it. So maybe giving them absolute referencing to a location that they don't have access to, because obviously, as we said, on the day, they should only have access to their location. So if for some reason the response has got absolute referencing to a shared location somewhere on the school network, it ain't going to work. Maybe give them access to a response where the original files have not been submitted, just so they can see what happens. So what we're trying to do is, if the worst thing does happen, they know how to do it. And we all know that when it comes to technology in those clutch situations, you can never predict everything. I had a student a couple of years ago who had access arrangements, and my classroom was next to the access arrangements room, and the moderator sort of came, knocked on my door to say that everything the student was typing was disappearing. And they couldn't work out why. They typed to making it go, and they couldn't type normally. And what happened, the student had accidentally pressed the insert key, and so it wasn't typing properly. But nobody in that room had the first idea what that meant, or how to fix it. Just make sure that they are aware of the importance of screen print evidence in Unit 4. So maybe have a look at one really poorly put together evidence document and one really well put together evidence document. I think the most frustrating thing is when perhaps a student could do everything but hasn't gone through the proper process of not evidencing things. And even simple things like when they screenshot something, cropping it so it can be read. Again, I've been in a situation marking stuff where they've cropped the entire screen for maybe a little bit of code in the top left-hand corner, and it's barely legible. So just making sure that either they zoom in on their document before they screenshot it, or that they're giving stuff that's readable. So again, these are all really just to make sure they don't lose marks when they deserve to have them. Okay. Yeah, I think for units 2 and 4, even if they can't remember how to do everything to fully complete a task and get a fully working artifact, get them to do it, tell them to do as much as they can. Even if they can't get the code fully working, they'll still get the marks for what they can do. One of the certainly the brief we get as examiners is we're looking for reasons to give marks. Like the most recent exams I've marked have been the computer science ones, and they could submit code that on the whole is a mess and doesn't work. But if they've used indentations and got some comments in there, you can at least give them the marks for good coding practice. Okay, so it doesn't have to be a perfect, fully functioning database or website for them to be able to get some marks for it. So teaching them that we're not looking for perfect. Sometimes if you can't remember everything, at least do the things you can do. Don't abandon your attempt because you don't think you're going to be able to finish it all. So a little bit of information about mark schemes. Um, what are they? How do they work? So I don't know if anybody here has been an examiner or done any work examination wise with either Edexcel or with another exam board, but I can say without hesitation that if you want to be better at delivering a specification, you should give examining a go. Um, it's it's the best way of getting a really, really good understanding of what's being looked for so that you can then help your students with that. I know I keep jumping from ICT to computer science and but I'm using it as an example. So I've been, for example, in the past an examiner and a team leader for the GCSE computer science. And that work I did put me in such a good position to be able to coach my students in how to maximize their chances of marks, especially on the paper two, the live coding one. There you go, Louis. Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah, it's incredibly useful. You're not going to make a fortune out of it, although it's not. It's actually once you get into the swing of it, actually, it's pretty. Yeah, do we measure things on an hourly rate as teachers? I don't think we do. But once you get into it takes a little bit of getting into a marking session. Once you're into the marking session and you're proficient and you are know what you're looking for, you can do a very good, efficient, high quality job of marking. Can non-British apply for being an examiner? I don't think so, a beer. I but I that it's worth double checking. Think I actually think it might vary from qualification to qualification. Having said that, so some would insist you are a British resident, others don't insist that. I'm trying to remember the exact details for Edexcel. I've been abroad for the last couple of years, and so haven't been marking because the exams I had been marking required me to be a. So they actually required face-to-face attendance of the standardization. So I'm going to say I'm not sure. Um, I think you're more likely to be accepted as a non-British resident if the standardization for that qualification is not face-to-face. If the standardization is online or virtual, then it increases your chances because the exam board will pay the a lot of the stuff. I think it's the Edexcel is in Milton Keynes now. It used to be in London when I used to have to go down to London to like right to the middle of London. And obviously, you're traveling, your accommodation gets paid for. That's They're not going to pay for you to fly from a global location. Um, so I know that's not a definitive answer, a beer, but my gut instinct would depend upon whether the standardization was in face to face or online. Um, but yeah, what Louis says, it's the most useful thing you can do. Obviously, apart from this professional development session, it's the most useful thing I think you can do to get your students ready for teaching for doing the qualification. The moderating, the team leading, the verifying, it's all really, really useful. And if you go onto the Edexcel website, I think it's the gateway, in fact, then I think there's almost always vacancies for there you go. Yeah, they are changing now, Louise. The last one I did in London, which was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. I was a team leader. There was a train strike, and so we had about 20 delegates who couldn't make it. Who I ran there. I basically sat in the room with Cynthia, who's the lead examiner, and while she ran the stuff, I was online with the people who couldn't make it. Yeah, it's so. Yeah, it is changing, but by necessity and just to match the times, I suppose. So there we go. Okay. So yeah, so the exam's written, the mark scheme's written, and then you have the examiner, the team leaders, the senior examiners sit around for a couple of days and really thrash out the minutiae of the mark scheme. That's where you have all these caveats in the mark scheme and what is can and can't be accepted. Often it's then updated at that point, and then the examiners will a standardization meeting or something, some kind of standardization process to make sure they can use the mark scheme. I think I can hear somebody's microphone on. If anybody's got them, I think Avanti, have you got your microphone on? I think it's saying you've got your microphone on. There you go. Thank you. Whether I pronounce your name, whether it's Avanti or Avanti, I apologize if I got it wrong. So types of questions. So nice, simple ones. And again, I would say the mark scheme is, and there's a whole debate to be had here about whether you should be giving the mark schemes to the students or whether you should be using the mark schemes to guide the students. I'm of the second opinion, really. I think I know that they can get a hold of themselves now anyway. They're all out there, but the mark schemes are written for the examiners and they're written for teachers, but predominantly for the examiners. I tend to use the mark schemes when I'm feeding back on a set. If I've done like an end of unit assessment, I'll use the mark scheme to feed back. But and again, there's a whole debate to be had about that. But there we go. But yeah, so there's the points based ones. Those are nice and easy. Okay, one for this, one for this, one for this, maximum 3. Here's a demonstration of what it might look like. Nice and straightforward. This is a points-based one just for, so that one was just very much identify. This is a points-based mark scheme for a describes question. So again, if they've got, so this is a 4-marker. So 1 mark for each descriptive point to a maximum of 2 marks for a linked description. So this is obviously a question about how is Annika using software as a service? So she could use online applications to allow her. So 1 mark for saying online applications, 1 mark allow her to use her work collaboratively. And again, look, so this is the kind of, where it says additional guidance. This is the examiner trying to ensure, or so the examination team trying to ensure equity. Again, anybody who's been through that process, the key word when it comes to creating this mark scheme is consistency. Because you will have a lot of people marking these exams. And the ideal is that you can put the same paper in front of every single examiner and they'll give exactly the same mark. We know that doesn't happen. There's always that little bit of human interpretation. But the golden aim of any mark scheme is consistency. Okay. So again, additional guidance, appropriate digital device, any appropriate digital device will suffice. And that means we then link all the way back to those updates that were on the issue 2 of the specification, where they've then updated what is meant by an appropriate digital device. Okay, so what a lovely way of looping all the way back around. But again, answer with guidance. So this is a level-based question. So these tend to be for the longer questions, awarded holistically. Essentially what that means is you're going to sit down and you're going to read it. Okay, so this has got 12 marks. So the responses should be in the context in relation to the context of the question. So this is obviously one about privacy, and then it will give some indicative content. So what's the kind of knowledge that this candidate should be explaining? What things should they know, and what things should they know that are related to the context of the question? And again, the additional guidance. Examples may be used if they're not duplicated and fit into one of the categories of the indicative content, which is on the left-hand side. And then you have the levels. So whenever I'm marking a level-based question, I will read it and then I go straight to level 3. Is there any reason why I can't give the level 3 bullet points? So I look at the first one, demonstrates accurate and relevant knowledge and understanding throughout. If they haven't done that, then I go to level 2. Have they done the demonstrates for level 2? And I'm looking for the highest level I can give them. So I start off assuming that I'm going to mark, well, I will mark against the level 3 criteria first. Some people do it differently. Some people want to work from the bottom upwards. My personal preference is I look at the top level and I'm like, right, have they done any of this? If not, I'm just going to start to move down. And I just, I get my little highlighter, a little fluorescent highlighter out and highlight the things I think they've done. There you go. So level based. And then there's this one, which is the hybrid. So the hybrid, which has got both points and level based, and you will often see this on the some of the more practical questions. And it's one of the ones we're going to have a look at a little bit later on. Well, I say later on. What time we got now? In the next hour. So it will, for example, have them marks for the different things that you can go hunting for. Either in the website they've on this one, for example, in the website they built, it'll ask you to go out and find evidence of hyperlinks. So and also and you'll see this when we're marking a little bit later on the Excel sheet, which is the marking sheet. Try and get into the habit of saying where you found it. Okay. And then once you've found all the points, you can then start to go back to the levels and say, okay, so they've done all those bullet points, but have they actually been consistent and accurate in application of CSS? Does the website fully adhere to the layout and design? Okay, so, and again, that's how some of the more complex questions in maybe the computer science is answered. So there'll be some bullet points that they should have done, and then you can give them a mark of up to 3 for good programming practice and function. I think it's functionality and what's the other one? I'm sure probably if somebody can, I think it was good coding practice, functionality, and I can't remember the last one. Anyway, so all good. Okay, any questions about those before we move on? Because we're now into marking practice, which I think we can all agree is the bit we've all been waiting for. Okay, so this is also on your Word document. So this is pages. Excuse me while I do 2 things at once. So this is pages 10 onwards. So what we have is a series of questions that look like that. So I provided you with the question, with the mark scheme, and then with responses. Okay, so I think there's 2 for each. So a couple of responses for each of those questions. So on that Word document, you'll see the question, response 1. What mark would you award the response and why? So linking back to the mark scheme, which bits of the mark scheme have they evidenced or have they demonstrated or have they met to be able to give that mark? Okay, I think on some of them there's even a bit of a help with some of the highlighting. I've just realised that I think on one of them, in fact, on that very first one, I put the same screenshot in twice. But let me see if I can find the other one. There's the other response. So, and I've already fixed it. There we go. So on this, the time is now 11:02. Can I suggest that we do everything up to, but not including the Unit 2 question 4? So there are 1, 2, 3. There are 3 questions, each with 2 responses for you to have a go at marking. Okay, so as I said, I know that on that first one, I've accidentally put the same response on twice. So I'll put it onto the screen here. I can just see just somebody put a question in the Q&A. So 3 questions, 6 responses. The time is 11:03. If I said 17 minutes, so 17 minutes to have a look at the 2 responses for the 3 questions, give it a mark and justify your mark. Is that okay? Anybody got any questions about that? What I will do on this first question, which is question 1CI. As I said, I've just realised I've put the screenshot of response 1 in twice. So there's response 2. Everything else I think is okay. So I'm going to be quiet. It's 3 minutes past the hour. We will reconvene at 20 minutes past the hour and go through the answers we think these responses are worthy of. Anybody got any questions about that? Whilst I try and get my toolbar at the top to work again. I'm assuming you've already started. I'll be quiet. Or I suppose the 2 responses I'm looking for, either a bit more time, please, or ready to go. And then I'll go with the majority vote. So if you feel that you're already ready to go, you've had a look at the questions and you want to start to have a look at the marks they've been awarded and why, let me know that you're ready to go. Otherwise, if I don't, the majority seem to be ready. So it's 3 votes to get going so far. Louise, Susan, Abir, all ready to get going. Anybody want to dissent on that one? Thank you, Carol. Okay. I'm going to give people 10 seconds. Let's see if we get 10 dissenting voices in the next 5 seconds, or else we're going to start to work. Okay, ready. Right, let's get going. Okay, so let's go back to the previous one. If it'll work. There we go. So we have I'm jumping all over the place. So here we go. So this first response for this question is great. It's there as an exemplar, really, because they have given a thing that can be adjusted. Okay, so it's asking for features to assist with disabilities. So she's basically said, look, this is what can be done, and this is how it helps. And again, just to kind of help out, you can see it's highlighted there. So that's a 4 marker. Okay, nice and straightforward. So description given with a follow through. Next one is not quite as good. So on this one, they have. Oh, I've skipped ahead. Sorry. This one was 2 marks, so 2 lots of 1. So when clicked on a button, speak up. What they've done the first part of each description without any follow through. So they've got 2 marks. It's fine, but either they've not realised or they haven't been able to do the second part of each part. Okay. I hope you agree with that. Okay, so next one. So this is asking to give basically 3 differences between static and dynamic web pages. So again, the mark scheme asks you to award 1 mark for each difference up to a maximum of 3 marks, and then gives a load of indicative content. And again, there's that bit of additional guidance. So our responses. So this first response gets 3 marks. Okay. They've given 3 points that can be seen in the mark scheme, and so it's the 3 marks. Okay. Nothing more complicated than that. Response 2. Yeah, response 2. This got 2 marks. So we've got 1 mark for saying that static uses HTML while dynamic uses a scripting language. That's mark 0.3. And 1 for saying static uses client-side scripting whilst dynamic uses server-side, which is mark 0.4. The reason they didn't get the 3rd mark for 0.3 is it's really just kind of it's an expansion of their second answer. They've not told us anything else. I suspect it's one of those where they couldn't think of a 3rd, and so they've done the right thing. They've tried to write something for the 3rd one, but really they've sort of just reworded their second point. Any dissenting voices on those first 2? Okay, you're all clearly very good at this. Okay, so next one. This is them explaining how a tag can be used to add embedded content. And again, you've got your indicative stuff. So you can use an iframe tag or an object tag or an embed tag. Any of those are absolutely fine. So for response 1, I'm double checking I'm on the right one. Yeah. They have got 2 marks. Okay. So they've got the mark for so I was responsible, yeah. So they've got the mark for saying it's the iframe tag. And not much else. So I just realized I'm missing something. Oh, no, I'm not. Okay. And then explaining what it does. So 1 for saying it's an iframe tag, 1 for saying it can be used to embed another document in a fixed size frame. And then on response 2, they got 1 mark for identifying that the embed tag could be used. But you can't give them the mark for then using it's not what it's asking for. It's not, you can't use embed and iframe as separate marks. So 1 mark for each point. So even though iframe and embed are both correct answers, they can't have the mark for embed and the mark for iframe. They needed to expand more on the embed or the iframe tag to get the 2nd mark. Okay, so we've blitzed through those. Okay, anybody got any questions about those 3 questions before we move on to this bigger question? Half an hour. Okay, so no. Okay, so question 4, which is one of those is the biggest one we're going to look at today, because we don't really have time for anything else. So in your delegate pack, there are 2 Edexcel, there you go, 2 Excel documents called Q04, marking grid response 1, marking grid response 2. So for this question, there are 2 responses. Okay, those responses are made up of a screenshot of the website as it is, and then the in your I think I'll be a lost connection. And then in your Word document, you will see that I have. So it's got the question from start to finish. So it's got the introduction to the question, which is here. So that's your wireframe and style guide. You've then got more of the style guide and the overall page requirements. And then you've got the text images. So basically, you can see everything the student should have had or the student has got. This is a 20-mark question. Okay. So your job, based on that question, and then with the Excel documents, is to give those two responses a mark out of 20. I think we are now at, there's just under half an hour to go of the session. I'm going to ask you to try and mark both, okay? But if you can get at least one marked in its entirety, that's going to be really useful. But as I said, essentially what you have in front of there is your marking grid response. And in that marking grid response, have I omitted something? No, I may have omitted that. Don't think I've just bear with me a second. Oh no, okay, I have included it. Sorry. In your delegate pack also, so I was just for a horrible second, I thought the mark scheme wasn't in there. So in your delegate pack, there is also the mark scheme. Okay. The mark scheme for this, which details for that question I think I may have gifted you it here. I think I've left I think I may have left some of the answers in the mark scheme. Okay. Yeah, so they both should be empty because it's your job to fill them in. Okay. But there is the mark scheme that goes with it. So I've just read, okay, so yes, they're both empty. The mark scheme is in your delegate pack, and it shows you what you should be looking for each of the assessment points from 1 to 14. And then you make a judgment as to whether you think for the two topic areas, they're anywhere between 0 to 3. If that makes, I hope that makes sense. Yeah. So the marking grids are for you to fill in, Susan. Somebody just give me a thumbs up that you can see the mark scheme in the delegate pack, please. It should be in there. Is the mark scheme in the delegate pack? Can somebody confirm that? Yeah, perfect. Zisha, thank you. So I hope that makes sense. Avanti, yes, question. Avanti, I can see you've raised your hand. Did you have a question about something? Did you click on the wrong button? Okay, fine. So you have your marking grids to put your marks in, starting with response 1. So you've got the screenshot, you've got the HTML code, both HTML codes, and you've got the CSS file. So can you please, time is now 11:35. At 11:50, at 11:50, so at 10 minutes to the end of the session, we will get back together and I will give you an overview of what marks these two responses gained and where they gained them. Okay. Or at least for one of them, more accurately, where they missed out. So I'm assuming everybody can see the marking grids. They can see the mark schemes. They've got the content on their Word document, and that we're all good to go to have a look at these two responses for the next 15 minutes. Anybody got any problems? In which case, I will be quiet for the next 15 minutes. Marking 12 mark questions. So I want to try and spend a couple of minutes on that. So what I propose to do is I'm going to quickly just talk you through these two responses. I'm going to deal with response 2 first, for no other reason than it was good. Okay. On response 2, which is I don't know, it goes without saying, but it's this one here. They did everything. This is a you can use almost this is an example of what to do. So there, it was all formatted correctly. The HTML was great. Their CSS was good. They hit every single mark point, and you can see how this is laid out. So saying that, okay, AO1, so the mark scheme AO1 is going to check as they use the meta char set UTF-8 and saying where it all is. Okay, so I think what we'll try and make sure is that you have a copy of the presentation so that you can have a look at this. But for the response two, it was absolutely great. Okay, they even got the full marks on the two traits at the end. So the idea is the component layout design and the application of CSS to control presentation. So response two, very, very good. Response one wasn't terrible, but they did drop a few marks. So you can see here that they've lost the mark for that didn't use the meta name description. They didn't do some of the sizing for assessment 4. Some things they did fine. A11 was a functioning email address, but it wasn't the correct one. So it was good, but not great. I think that one overall was in 11, I think, in the end. Let me just check. Yeah, that was this one was in 11 out of 11 out of 20. And it's funny, you open it and you can straight away see just by looking at that we've got issues here. Okay, they're not in the right place. They've not got stuff in there. Yeah, it's not quite right. But again, that comes back to that not a perfect solution, but they did enough to at least get themselves about half the marks. So we've got 9 minutes. So just to reiterate, response 1 was an 11 out of 20. Response 2 was a 20 out of 20. But we'll try and make sure that we'll get. I'm assuming that you get will you get the links anyway? I'll speak to Pearson and see if we can get the copy of the presentation sent out to you as well. I don't think it was in the delegate pack. I might be wrong, but I don't think it was in the delegate pack. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about any of that? Whilst I try and get, there we go. I do have a question. For ACE, is this for response 1 or response 2, Louise? So the good one. So the justification was given. Yeah, so you can. Although not specifically implemented in the code, the images were 150 by 150 pixels, and the candidate has added at least 3. So although you can't find it in the code, yeah, because they're equally spaced and you can see they're equally spaced, you can allow the mark, yes. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I know we're running out of time, and I apologize for that. This used to be 2-hour sessions, and it's now 1 3-hour session, and I'm still working on the timings a little bit, unfortunately. Okay, so I had a question about 12 markers. So I've sort of dug in and just had a look at so I'll have a look at a 12-mark question in front of me. Here we go. So this one, a bus company is conducting a new initiative to ensure it effectively and efficiently serves its customers and stakeholders. It's decided to structure its data and store in a database. Evaluate the decision. You should consider the data collected and stored, the benefits and drawbacks of structuring the bus company data, the value for the bus company of the information that can be extracted. So I can't remember who it was that asked about a 12-mark question in the Q&A. If they want to get all of so this is an evaluate the decision question for a 12 marker. So they should be introducing their response. Okay, I always ask my students to put just a little introduction, almost showing they know what they're about to talk about. So maybe define what is meant by a database, define what is meant by collecting data, define what is meant by structured data. So take the core knowledge pieces from the question and say, like, okay, the bus company would like a database, which is this to do it. So I would have a little introduction. This one has then got you could consider data collected, benefits and drawbacks, value for the bus company. I would be asking them to do just an explanation of each of those. So an explanation of what data can be collected and stored by the bus company, how it could be collected, how it could be stored, and some of maybe the advantages and disadvantages of those collection and storage methods. Then the straightforward one, the benefits and drawbacks of structuring the bus company data. So how it could be structured, why it could be structured, why those are going to be a good thing, why those are going to be a bad thing. And then the value for the bus company of the information that can be extracted from the data, what information could be extracted, how could it be extracted, how could that extracted data be used, and then what are the advantages of them being able to use that extracted data, and then a summary at the end of, on balance, or a conclusion, on balance, it is a good idea for the company to structure their data and store it in a database. So in answer to how to structure those 12 markers, a lot of it is going to come from how the question is answered and the command word. But I would always start with a little introductory paragraph where they show that they know what they're talking about. Then maybe 2, 3, depending on what the question looks like, 2 or 3 or 4 paragraphs dealing with some individual aspects of the theory being covered, always linking back to the context of the question, and then an explanation, especially if they, on this one, evaluate. They're being asked to evaluate the decision, so they should basically give a conclusion as to why they think it's a good or a bad thing, and summarize some of their findings as to why it's a good and a bad thing. So that's the 12-mark questions. For a 6-mark question, let me just scroll up to the 6-mark question I wanted to use as an example. 6-mark question I found was... so this one was about a vending machine. So how a customer makes a purchase. And this was explain how the components within the embedded system allow the machine to take payment, supply and give change. So this is an explain what the components do and how they help them buy stuff from a vending machine. I'd be happy to see that bullet pointed. This component will do this. That means that then this component can do this. So maybe a series of how it's going to come out with bullet pointed information. I would say when it comes to structuring or writing down these long response questions, for goodness sake, have your students endear themselves to the examiners by breaking it up. As an examiner, there's nothing more heartbreaking than opening an answer and it's just a block of text. Paragraph it out. Give the examiner a chance to be able to easily find a demonstration of knowledge rather than having to hunt through this almost indecipherable block of text to try and extract stuff from it. I hope that answers that question about 6 and 12-mark questions. But yeah, especially for those 12 ones that I evaluate, introduce with a paragraph, then according to what the question asks, address maybe 2 or 3 issues with pros and cons of each one of it to evaluate, and then finish with a conclusion. I'm about to hand back over to our other Pearson host today. Before I do, does anybody have any burning questions that they think I can answer in 30 seconds or less? Louise, sorry, did I answer that? I hope I answered that question correctly about the I hope I answered that question to your satisfaction about the okay, great. If nobody has any other questions, let then I am more than happy to hand back over and we can call it a session today. Thank you very much for taking part for the last 3 hours. It flies by, it really does. And good luck, everybody, with this qualification in the future.